What is grace? Grace is giving someone leeway, giving someone basically forgiveness. And grace is being the bigger person. So, God, He gives us grace all the time. And once you start thinking of grace in that aspect, it gets more complicated. What I mean by that is, He knows grace that we don't understand yet. So, for example, we're all sinners, we all screw up, but God loves us anyways. That's grace. I'm sure we live life the way He doesn't fully want us to live, and that's Him giving us grace. We mess up and we do stuff, but He gives us grace and mercy, which is forgiveness within that. Grace is also not knowing. For example, you see someone do something and they didn't know any better. You give them grace, you give them a break, because, well, they didn't know any better. How can you really judge them for something they didn't know? Cops do it all the time. You might be speeding down the road and you're going like 80 in a 70, and if they give you grace, that's pretty lucky. But you could be like, well, I really didn't pay attention to my speedometer. That's you being irresponsible. But if they give you grace, that's seriously grace, because they could fine you $200. It's the same concept with God and how we should view people, in the sense we're all going to get too caught up in something and lose focus, and that's where grace comes in. That's where you can't judge yourself all the time. I used to judge myself. Till this day I still do it, and it sucks, but you can't let the past hurt you. That's where grace comes in. That's where forgiveness comes in. For me, I've done some crazy stuff in my past, and if it wasn't for God's grace, I should be dead by now. Like you're reading the Bible, so, God like killed someone type of thing. That should be like me. But that's where grace comes in. That's where forgiveness and mercy really steps in. So grace is basically giving someone a break and really giving them a lot of leeway based off they really didn't know any better. If they did, God in His big, huge love forgives regardless. And I feel like if we give people more grace, it's us being more loving, because that's really what it is. It's us being the person who oversees it, but sometimes doesn't necessarily say anything, because sometimes people got to learn in different ways, and I feel like that's a lot of how grace works. God, He allows us to do some crazy stuff that, someone might be like, well, how can He get away with that? Maybe for that individual, that's their path they need to take to learn something bigger in life. And their day will come where they'll probably look back and be like, wow, I was a fool. I was so stupid. I was horrible. But then that's where you can't condemn yourself, because that's where God comes in and be like, you know what? It's the past. Accept it and move forward. And once you start applying grace into your life, it doesn't give you the ability to just do whatever you want. It's basically giving you the ability to forget what you did do. Because once you know something and you still, go against it, that's being disobedient. That's you being, in my opinion, a fool. Because usually, if you do something that you shouldn't be doing, someone's getting hurt. For example, just take the speeding. You might be like, oh, well, no one's going to get hurt. But I speed all the time, and I have no room to talk, by all means. But, for example, say someone pops in front of me, and I'm going 80. For my potential to stop is so much, I can't stop as quick. And I'm risking that over my pleasure, if you will. And the concepts can apply all across the board, but usually anything that we shouldn't do, there's a deeper meaning behind it. And we're just being the naive people that just don't know any better, if that makes sense. So once you start applying grace into your life, it forgets your past in every aspect of the past. Don't let your past hold you down, because if you do, you're condemning your own self. And when it comes to God, God doesn't do that to you. Till this day, in this very moment of me talking, if you want to say, God, forgive me, He forgives you and it's forgotten. If you don't forget it, though, that's your own problem. And for me, personally, that has been a sad story. I've not forgiven myself all the way. Until this day, I have always am having to remind myself of what grace is. And I hope that kind of elaborates what grace is. Hey, if you like this video, please follow and share it. Thank you.